unable to come to an agreement today. Be happy to answer any questions from the City Council.
Yes, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was there at any time, did the city staff use any of the Indigo proposal and present any piece or part of that to Emerald Golf Management?
I think I'd like the city attorney to address that. I think fundamentally when we're looking at the proposal that was submitted from Emerald, it was challenging in terms of some of the conflicting natures in terms of how it was presented. But if the city attorney could chime in regards to how the initial draft was created.
Oh, it was probably off during the ordinance also, I apologize. Yeah, during the initial preparation of a draft to go to Emerald, based on the terms that council had indicated to staff that you'd like to see in the agreement, we used the skeleton, the structure of the Indigo proposal because it made sense. We didn't offer them the Indigo proposal. We, as I say, used it as a scaffold. We took a lot of material out of that agreement, and we would have taken the same material out had we been negotiating with Indigo. So it was a convenient structure rather than sort of reinventing the wheel, but it wasn't the Indigo proposal that they were given.
Mr. Mears, I want to ask a few questions. Perhaps you can provide me some insights on this. I know that some of this was from earlier in the conversation, but I know that there were some significant concerns early on in the process with regards to issues around the books, residential rates, capital improvements and who gets to decide on those, and the I understand that the lease changed. It was a lease, it wasn't a lease, but if I'm correct, there is no expectation of any rental income, no lease payments until year 4. Can you speak to any of those things?
Certainly. When the original proposal came from Emerald, there were no lease payments associated with the agreement. Subsequent versions showed lease payments coming to the city of Bowie in year 4. After the version that was uploaded to the agenda, Emerald provided another version which included lease payments to the city that would begin in year 1. Unfortunately, the lease payments that they have proposed within their agreement are not sustainable with the pro forma that they had submitted. So that is not something that is viable. I did want to make a specific note in regards to the most recent agreement associated with the lease payments. They did state that the lease payments would be contingent upon capital improvements that would be made and sufficient revenue coming in to Emerald. So they were not actually definitive lease payments that were included even in the latest proposal that they provided to the city. Associated with capital improvements, one of the things that the city realized with the proposals that were received is that neither of the proposals were looking to take care of any of the capital improvements. So the city council, through its discussions, acknowledged that it would be taking on capital improvements associated with the golf course. Unfortunately, in the Emerald agreement, they have terms that are included in there that says that capital improvements shall be items that have an economic useful life of 1 year and have a cost in excess of $2,500. Their agreement in terms of the proposed language states that Emerald shall be, the city shall be responsible for the payments of all capital improvements, and all decisions as to whether or not to undertake any capital improvements or projects shall be made by Emerald Golf Management. So one of the very difficult provisions for that is that Emerald would be having a say in regards to the capital improvements that the city would be making, and that was not an acceptable term. Did I address all your questions, or is
Yeah, actually, a couple more for you. Can you speak to this issue of rates? Because I know that there was some confusion about that earlier, and there was a escalation, 100%, 110% rate discussion at some point as well.
Yes, so one of the things that the City Council had included in its proposal to Emerald was having a residential rate component associated with that. That was not included in any of the agreements until, as I mentioned, the one that was just received last Friday from Emerald. They had included in their initial proposal in regards to how rates would be calculated, that they would not, in the initial proposal, stated that they would not exceed 110% of comparable courses within the area. When we received the proposal back from them, that language had been removed, which was essentially a cap or a throttle in regards to how much the rates would be increased. So it was viewed negatively in regards to a change in regards to how they would be coming up with the rates for the project.
There was also some concerns about having a PGA certified teaching professionals and a commitment to staff. Can you speak to those for us?
Yes, one of the initial provisions that was included in the proposal was that they would have a PGA certified teaching professional providing lessons in their agreement. The revised agreement that came back removed the term PGA certified teaching professional, and it would just be a teaching professional. So we viewed that as negative compared to the initial proposal submitted.
And I'm not sure if I should be asking you or if I should be asking the city attorney. Can someone speak to the issue of assignment of the contract, the ability to typically to assign a contract to others once it's been engaged with the city?
I don't know if Jan has something on that. We would ordinarily include a provision that you can't assign the contract because we're contracting with a specific entity based on its particular skills and personnel and expertise. I don't know, Dan may know whether they took that out as well.
I'm looking for that term where that was included. I apologize, I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
Just have a couple of things real quick.
Councilor Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate my colleagues' questions. Several were preempted. So first off, I think I can safely say that all 7 of us on the City Council are committed to maintaining golf in Bowie. I think that goes without any question. Over the last 40 years since we've had a Bowie golf course, there's been rumors that pop up, sometimes once every couple of years, sometimes once every couple of days it feels, where there's a new plan to sell the property to a developer and build a bunch of homes. I can assure you 7-0, that's never been a controversial issue for this council or any previous ones. We bought the property specifically to maintain it, to protect it, to use it as a public amenity, and we're all committed to continuing to do that. This is not, unfortunately, a particularly new issue. It's just the next stumbling block in a series that we've had with all of our recreational amenities in Bowie. We are one of the more amenitized communities in the region. We're very proud of that. None of our facilities serve only Bowie residents. None of our facilities make a ton of money back. Most of our facilities lose money, and that's largely by choice. We want them to be public, we want them to be affordable, we want them to be accessible. The challenge that we have is we're reaching the point where all of our amenities are really beginning to age. Our golf course is a half-century old, and the pictures that we get on what it looks like are increasingly bleak. When we see the wooden interiors and the roof and all the equipment that needs replacing. Our basketball courts, we've invested a lot of money improving things there. That's one of our newer facilities. Our golf course is, especially for many of our regular players, I think someone referred to it as a dog track earlier, but our dog track, I think that's how a lot of us feel as well. It's not in the best shape. It definitely needs some TLC, and we're committed to make that happen. We, on the last council, visited the golf course over a series of many meetings with a consulting firm at the time to look at all the specific things that needed improvements. We got on the phone with our state lawmakers about possible sources of funds to improve the historic property on the site, to start repairing the irrigation. And the city began on a long series of scheduling capital projects to improve the course, and we're going to stick to those. We're committed to making that happen. It will hopefully not be a dog track for very long. It won't be able to all be done overnight. It's a lot of money, but we can, over the course of several years, continue to make some improvements to it so that it can be a really great amenity. And with the closure of so many of the other golf courses in the area, as many of you wrote to us about, we totally recognize the importance of maintaining this particular amenity, and we also get that it can be very successful. I don't think we'll have any shortage of players anytime soon for quite a while. So we're all committed to keep it going. Our only challenge is simply one of management. The Bowie Golf Course is the only facility we have that is not directly run by city personnel. The gym is run by city employees, the courts or the ice rink's run by city employees, the senior center is run by city employees. The golf course is not. For 40 years, we've had a private company, Bowie Golf Management, running the facility for us. For most of that time, I think the relationship was very fruitful for both sides. As the owners of the previous company, I think, kind of approached retirement, I think the relationship changed a little bit, just from my perspective, just my observation. We discovered over time that much of our relationship with the previous company was largely built on trust. And we specifically discovered that when we would go to our contract whenever there was an issue and realize, a lot of this isn't enforceable. So we quickly learned that trust was really important in that relationship. Over the course of the last few months, as we've kind of gotten a closer look at the operations of the golf course, we've realized there are a lot of things that moving forward we absolutely want to improve upon, and a lot of things that we want to do a little bit differently. As a result, the whole city council has been absolutely committed to the notion that if we are going to invest a very large amount of public tax dollars into the course over the next several years, we want to make sure there's 100% absolute financial transparency and accountability. We want to make sure that if we're doing all the major capital improvement projects, that we're able to set the pace of those projects. We recognize that there's a lot of costs involved in this. We wanted to make sure in writing that the city council would have final say over rates and that we would be able to keep rates low. These were all non-negotiables for us from the beginning. And I think the challenge that we had is that at times, my observation was our negotiating partner simply had a different philosophy. I think they wanted to come in. We're very proud of the fact that they had the potential to run a very independent facility, more similar to the arrangement we had with Bowie Golf Management. And throughout the process and throughout the negotiation, it just seemed to us as though there was kind of an irreconcilable difference of philosophies about that. The final offer we received included allusions to some of the things we wanted, but a lot of it was not in writing. And there were things in the final offer we received that were, from our perspective, not as great for the city as when we actually began. Overall, all of us felt that we were further apart at the end in many ways than when we started. And with the deadline looming, we were kind of stuck. And unfortunately, being a public body, we can't just, all 7 of us hang out, at the pub with our friends, our negotiating partners to sign a deal. We have to go through, unfortunately, this public process, with public meetings and deadlines and rules that we have to follow, unfortunately. So where we are is fairly straightforward. We're committed to maintaining public golf. We're committed to throwing a lot of money at it in the next few years. A lot of these things are already scheduled in our capital improvements list. It's just a matter of figuring out who's going to run it day to day for us. So with that, I'm going to stop my soliloquy. And Mr. Assistant City Manager, can you just update us briefly on what are the current plans for maintenance of the facility, and what are we doing so far in the short term while we get our new management agreement situation taken care of?
Certainly, per council direction through the last couple of weeks, the city has been working with Bowie Golf Management on the transfer of assets of the golf course. We've acquired their maintenance equipment. We have purchased golf carts for the continued operation. And last Friday, we entered into contractual relationship with 8 people to continue the maintenance of the golf course. So I know people have spotted folks out on the golf course just recently. Those are the folks out there maintaining the golf course, keeping it in great condition. We want to make sure that as soon as we are able to open the golf course for play, it's going to be ready for everyone, and the city is committed to doing that. We've taken those steps to be ready once we have the management relationship established.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Those are the extent of my remarks. I'm hopeful that by the end of the night, we can get this ball rolling again so that we can get our course open for players once more. It looks as though we have 3 options available to us. And then I'll turn over the mic to my colleagues. One, directing the city manager to negotiate an agreement with another professional golf management firm, soliciting a new proposal for management for the golf course, or developing a budget, hiring staff, and working towards city management of the golf course. I know that in none of these cases are these going to happen overnight. In conversations with my colleagues and with staff, I get that some of these options are certainly better than others, but those are the 3 that we're basically looking at this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues if they have anything else.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and let me just say to my colleague, Councilman and staff, that was better than I could have put it, honestly, and to that end, there's not much I have to say, but this, I mean, for the last 2 years, folks have watched us, whether that's in TV land or here in person. The one thing you can say about this council, which is good for democracy, is that we rarely agree on everything as all 7, right? So it sends a strong signal to the people of our city when we do, as all 7, say we agree on this without question. The reality, as my council colleague pointed out, is that the last agreement was flawed. The last agreement did not protect the taxpayers of the city. Frankly, the last agreement was dangerous. And what this new council wants to do is chart a path forward for accountability. That's pretty simple. And that's not an indictment on Emerald or anyone else. That's the past golf folks who are no longer involved in this process. So as we move forward, I think I can speak for the council when I say our number 1 priority at this moment is to make sure we get golf up and running again quickly as possible here in the city of Bowie. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I have nothing else to say. Obviously, we have discussed this for a very long time as a council in closed session. I know people have had one-on-one meetings with folks as staff have briefed us a long time of this. So from a policy angle, I don't have any more questions because I think I've asked council, our city staff, everything I could. But I do want to say that I'm proud that our council took such a bold step to say, you know, we're going to actually just focus on the taxpayers in this case and do what's right to make sure that Bowie Golf is here for a long time.
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman, excuse me.
Pardon
me, Mr. Mayor.
I can go after Councilwoman Harrison. Sorry about that.
This is
okay.
Gardner.
Okay, well, we go with,
Just 1 second, I'll be brief. Okay, thank
please,
you.
Councilwoman Harrison.
Okay.
We'll acknowledge Councilwoman Harrison, and then we will go to Councilwoman Under Bermadue, and then we will go to Councilman Gardner.
Okay, I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, but I also wanted you all to know that I certainly do love the golf course. And I just appreciate John Huber so much. He took the time to give me a tour during my first few months as a council member, and I thank him for that and his graciousness always. It's certainly an amenity I do not want to see go away and in no way be developed. The Bowie Golf Course is a great place, community, family-oriented, with rates that were also very family-friendly. I've never experienced a golf course like the Bowie Golf Course. However, for 40 years, we didn't see any books and allowed Bowie Golf Management to operate without any much intervention at all. And there was no transparency. And as council members, we're accountable to you, the taxpayers, and there must be transparency. We cannot continue to operate in the dark as we have for the last 40 years. We struggled with our decision to close the golf course, and we tried in good faith to negotiate. However, we couldn't reach an agreement that we feel was in the best interest of the city. And I know we all love golf and want to see it thrive for years to come. And all of us do look forward to success for golf in Bowie. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We'll now go to Councilwoman Bermadue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. And I also want to say thank you to my colleagues and echo the same sentiments of all of the things that they have mentioned this evening. And thanks city staff for answering a lot of the questions and bringing transparency. I was reading some of the emails that came in over this weekend, as well as today, from different residents, basically just expressing their concern and sharing with us how they want to see golf stay in the city. And what it really brought out to me was that there was this kind of, I guess you would say, miscommunication where people weren't really understanding what we as a council were trying to do on behalf of our residents. I think really what you're seeing is we're trying to make sure that as a city, we are operating in the most transparent and accountable way, like many of my colleagues have mentioned. And by no way have we ever intended and sat here and said, okay, we're going to close the golf course. That decision was actually very, very, very difficult for many of us who sat on the phone for many days and over the weekend and weeks ago, just basically talking, trying to put our heads together to see how we could reach an agreement. But one thing that we are, well, at least I'm not going to apologize, is for being accountable to residents and trying to ensure that as we go forward, over these next couple of years, that we are bringing accountability and transparency. And also, I don't want that to come off as if we're not welcoming wonderful business owners like Emerald who are trying to step forward and do business in our city. That's a wonderful thing, and we welcome that. But at the end of the day, we do have a responsibility to the residents. And as you've heard everybody say, golf is an amazing amenity that no one intends to leave the city of Bowie. So if we take away one thing from today's meeting, please take away the fact that golf is going nowhere. But really what we're trying to do to the best of our abilities is make sure that we're entering into agreements that make sense, that are fiscally responsible on behalf of the city of Bowie, so that we can continue to provide these amenities going forward. And look, it's going to be tough over the next couple of years. It's going to be difficult. Like you heard some of my colleagues say, there are many contracts that we've had over the years that just were not in the best interest of the city. And that's not to anybody here's fault in particular. However, that's just what, that's the hand that we were dealt with. And we're trying as best as we can to correct those things moving forward so that we can have sustainable programs and sustainable services that are available to our residents at low rates and at the availability in which you would like them to see, that are upholding the standards and the quality of the life that we have promised to provide you here in the city of Bowie. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that and drove that extra home for everybody that's listening, for everybody that's watching, for everybody that has been involved in the golf course. I'm an avid golf player. Everyone who knows me has seen me at the golf course many times, usually go there twice a week, if not once. So it's not going anywhere, but we have to make sure that we're doing things the right way to make sure that we are being sustainable with the way that we provide services in the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bermadue. And we'll now go to Councilmember Henry Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I believe that this agreement with Emerald was a bit difficult to swallow. So as a result of that, staff has moved to taking over the golf course until further notice. I want to support strongly the words of Councilmember Bermadue and driving it home as clearly as possible to all residents and those who frequent the Bowie golf course. We are not removing golf as an amenity for residents and those who frequent the Bowie golf course. Golf is here to stay. We're just looking for a great management relationship that works best for the residents as well as the actual golf course itself. Again, I want to thank staff and all of the residents and who have been through just this ordeal, just the inconvenience of it all. And just remain a bit patient. We're going to take care of this. I promise you, we're going to deliver as we have always done so before. But I again, thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Councilman Gardner. If there are no other comments, I'd like to make a few comments at this time. First and foremost, I want everyone to know that all of us, as a council, the city staff, and everyone views the Bowie Golf Course as truly a treasure for the city of Bowie. I want everyone to know that there is no intent to do anything other than get the Bowie Golf Course back operational. I would be less than transparent if I didn't say I was truly disappointed when we could not come to terms with this, as we have truly worked hard at trying to do this. And so please understand that we've gotten a lot of insight, and we've heard some different views on how we got to this point. But I do want to commend the city staff for all the work they've done on this. I have to commend the city council, because when they say to you that we were really trying to look at what was in the best interest of the citizens, the first priority was making sure that there was golf in the city of Bowie. Secondly, it was just trying to make sure that we had the transparency, as you've heard, in making sure that we are good stewards of the financial condition of the city and how we make sure we spend your tax dollars. Understand that what we have done in moving forward with the golf course is made sure that we're purchasing all the maintenance equipment. We're purchasing the golf course. We're going to be maintaining that as we move forward. So I hope that's a strong indication to everyone of where we're going with this and trying to make it the treasure that it is, and making sure that we as a community and we as a council and the city staff support the Bowie Golf Course. So please know, again, I, just like the rest of the council, I will say to you very openly, I am committed, and we need to make this happen. And we need to make this happen as a community, as well as hard as the city staff has been working at this. And so, having said that, I will turn to my council members at this point for any other comments or any motions.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Motion to go.
All right.
Floor is open.
All righty. This is a four-part motion. And actually, before I start, I do want to start off by saying thanks to staff that I know has worked so diligently on this effort, not only in trying to get through the negotiations aspect, but also in hustling along and getting the equipment necessary to maintain the course and doing all of that legwork. It's no light duty. Given that there are a bunch of other things, and this is not in the, quote, normal duties as assigned, so this comes in the additional category, so I appreciate their efforts. And I thank them in advance for what I'm hopeful we'll be asking them to do shortly. So the motion is to direct staff to allow Emerald until the 8th of this month to accept the city's terms. Secondly, move forward with negotiations with Indigo. And in parallel, the third item is in parallel, make all practicable efforts to open the facility for use using the 1099/contractors and staff to the extent possible so that we have some usage if possible. And finally, should negotiations not prove fruitful, move forward with operating the course with city staff.
Sorry, city staff, did you guys get that?
Can you repeat that, please? That was a lot.
Yeah, I had some clarifications too, thank you.
You bet. So the first is to allow to the end of this week, which is the 8th of October, to allow for Emerald to have the opportunity to accept city's terms and as have been covered. Part 2 is to move forward, authorize staff to move forward with negotiations with Indigo, the other vendor. Item number 3 is to make all practicable efforts to open the facility on a temporary basis using contractors and staff. And the final one is should negotiations with Emerald and Indigo not prove fruitful, move forward with operating the course with city staff. Point being is we want golf in the city.
I can second that.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to answer the question that Mr. Bothwell asked. We understand the assignment. We got it.
All right, any discussion? Councilwoman and the Bermadue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I understand the motion that Councilman DeFore made. I just kind of wanted to explain really quickly for my residents that are listening, in terms of the way that I'm gonna vote, because I don't agree with one part of the actual motion that was made. The last part of the motion is basically saying that if all else fails or whatever happens, that essentially the city of Bowie would take on the golf course as a city amenity and run it by city staff. I can't agree to that, only because I don't believe that the city of Bowie has the expertise to continuously get in the recreation business. And unfortunately, we just have not done it well. And so I cannot support us taking on another city service as a city when we don't have that expertise. And that's just not the business that I believe that we should be further continuously getting into year over year when it clearly has not worked out for us. And so I can't support that motion the way that it stands. I support the first 3 items. I cannot support the latter part. And so if the motion is for a vote that goes on all 4 of those items, I unfortunately can't support that at that time, this time, only for the last item. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Any other comments? Discussion? I think the one thing that I'll add prior to the vote is that this does give all those who have listened this evening an opportunity to address whatever may have been the miscommunication, if any, an opportunity to understand that and short-term rectify that. And so it gives that moment. So having said that, I think we do have to move in a way that will get the Bowie Golf Course open and get that treasure back to where it can be utilized by our personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask for our maker of the motion, would you be willing to change the last piece? I know we want to get the golf course open, but I do tend to agree with Councilmember Bermadue about the 4th option that you presented.
Yeah, I don't think there's a practical way. Without that 4th option, we will have no golf in Bowie because for quite some period of time, because to go through another contract solicitation proposal, to come back and only get maybe a couple people, we only had 2 vendors that came in the first time. So if I don't have some sort of kind of future plan, worst case scenario, it's my least desired option as well. My preference is to have a firm come in and do this that has the expertise. I think that's better than having to go and hire the expertise, which is what we would have to do. And it's clear there aren't hundreds of vendors out there right now, knocking on the door that would be willing to do it. So I don't think we would get anything different other than what we got now. So I think we're back at the same place without, without a solution and a golf course that's nobody's using. That's my only concern. If there's a way out of it, I'm all in favor. I'm not looking to do it that way myself either. It's really as a last resort.
Well, is there any way?
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Is that Councilman Gardner?
Yeah,
Yes,
can
Mr.
we
Mayor.
let Councilwoman Harrison finish? Because I think she was about to say one more.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Councilman Harrison.
Thank you. No, I was wondering maybe if we change it to say that we would, I totally understand your point, but maybe if we revisit after the 8th and then
Sure.
perhaps
That's perfectly fine.
negotiations with Indigo, if those don't move forward, we'll know that within a certain amount of time. And if we give ourselves some time, then we can come back and
Yeah,
revisit the
that's-
city option, but I prefer to take
Yeah.
that piece out
Yeah,
of
all right.
this current
That's fine, we
motion.
can strike that.
Thank you.
Want to make yeah. I'll strike, okay.
No, go ahead. It's
I
yours.
was gonna say, I'll strike that final item and we can readdress that later, should it be necessary.
Thank you.
City staff all good with the clarification with the friendly amendment?
I got it, thank you.
Thank you.
Just double checking with our city attorney, are we all proper here on all that process?
Yes,
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, sir.
we are.
Yeah, I was gonna call the question so we can end debates, but let's just, yeah. that's
Call
fine.
for the vote?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion has been moved.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna call for a roll call vote here.
You'd like a roll call vote? Okay. It's been moved and properly second. Discussion is over. We'll now do a roll call vote. And you can begin with me.
Sorry, Mayor, can you repeat that last part?
You
You
can
said-
begin with me.
Okay. Mayor Adams,
Aye.
Councilmember Gardner,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison,
Aye.
Councilmember Esteve,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolfley,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Boafo,
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebumalu.
Aye.
Ayes have it, Mayor.
Okay, the count is 7-0. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving to our next item on the agenda. Chief, how are you this evening?
Good, sir. You remember how I was very brief before? Don't leave on my account. So, you remember I was brief before. You have in front of you a large packet of information. I'm going to try to hit the highlights. Unfortunately, we're going to have to start with a bit of solemn and sad news. Today, we lost PFC James Sullivan to a recurring illness that he had been battling. We are still very fresh into this. The family is still very fresh into this, so I don't have a lot of information that we can share at the moment. I will ask that we all keep the Sullivan family in our prayers.
Our heartfelt condolences and prayers to the family.
Certainly will. Every department has at least one officer that everybody knows, and that was Sully, as people knew him.
Okay.
So, and it was amazing because he loved midnights. He loved to be, in the middle of the night, yet everybody still knew him. So I don't know quite how he did it, but we are mourning, and he will definitely be missed.
Yes.
So I'd like to say that I could move on to happier things, but I need to talk about staffing as well. So we are authorized 67. We actually have 6 openings. That puts us down to 61. When we factor in various officers that are not available for regular duty through medical or through modified duty, or we have a few suspensions, that drops us down to available personnel of 51. So that drops us 16 people that we do not have available for the ranks. So I want you to keep that in mind as you look at the stats and look at some of the great work that we're doing. We continue to do it very, very shorthanded, and that is a complete testament to the veracity and tenacity of the officers that are out there and their commitment to the city. So please just kind of keep that in mind as we go through just how short we are and how much people are working and covering the gaps. So I will say that we're seeing promise from the recruitment efforts that we're doing, the incentive bonuses, the signing bonuses, the recruitment bonus. If for those of you that don't know what they are, if you refer someone to us on their application and we hire them, you get $500. If you are hired and get through the academy, you have incentives, signing incentives from $3,000 to $9,000, and we have seen an uptick in applications. The downside of that, or the trick of that, is an uptick of applications doesn't always transfer to an uptick in people that we hire. For various reasons, there are many steps to our process that can trip somebody up. But we do have 2 that are in the background right now. We've got the academy, we've got 1 lateral that's in the background. We did 5 interviews today. We still have 2 that we need to interview. So we are actively searching, and we are getting some interest, which is a positive sign. We continue to have our outreach efforts. We have the Citizens Police Academy that's starting tomorrow. We have a drug take-back on October 23rd. Also tomorrow, we have Coffee with the Cop starting at 10 o'clock at the Starbucks over at the Bowie Town Center. We continue to do chief chats as information comes available. And we've started something called Impact. Impact is a program, it stands for Information Matters, Police and Community Together. And what that means is oftentimes communication is one directional. So what we want to do is start to create a feedback loop or an informational loop where we not only get information, but we act upon it, then we feed that back to the community so that they know what came of their information, what our results were, what we did with it, and it continues from there. So we started out, we had a rash of theft from auto over in the B and the K area. And we started with that as kind of a test case. We're kind of rolling it out slowly to make sure that we get the process correct. And we had some really good results. It started out with someone reporting the suspicious activity. We were able to get there quickly. We got into a brief vehicle pursuit, cut it off because it didn't meet the criteria, but we definitely got to them before they could do some more damage. We also had another call for suspicious activity. The officers were very tactical going in. They were able to take someone by surprise. We did make 1 arrest of it, and it kind of goes back to what we've been saying about you have to lock your cars, you have to take your things inside. And while we interviewed the person, the guy said that we come to Bowie because we know it's sweet here. People have nice stuff, they don't lock their doors, so we know it's good hunting ground. So they just admit this is why they come here. So it's that exchange of information, the continual education. It's the residents that are paying attention, calling us. We're able to respond and make things happen. And then we circle that loop. Again, we keep looping and giving that information back to them so that we become not only more efficient, but the residents understand what we're doing, what the results are. And the results may not always be as positive, but they need to know what their efforts and what their reporting gets them. So we're going to continue to build on that. It's a great way. We're partnering with the Public Safety Committee. Mr. Grayson from the Public Safety Committee is our community contact. He'll be helping to spread the word and build community contacts as well. So it's not just the police department driving it, it's more community involved, and it's a more holistic approach. I know or Councilman Wolfrey will be happy that our crime map, I've been promised our crime map will be up tomorrow. The link will be active. It's run by the city. It's built in cooperation between us and IT using the GIS data. And it's much more user-friendly, and it's just Bowie specific. The reason it took so long is because we had to load all the back data so that there's historical data to see if you pick a crime or a certain occurrence, you'll see at the bottom, it'll give you a graph on peaks and valleys of the information. So we're really looking forward to having that up. Briefly, we talked about some more thefts from auto. The biggest thing I want to say is key fobs. People, for some reason, have been leaving key fobs in their car. But if you leave your key fob in the car doesn't lock. It's just not designed to lock that way. So they leave their extra key fob in the car, they think they're locking the door, and they walk away, the door's not locked. And we've lost a couple cars that way. So we again are encouraging people to lock their cars, bring everything in, and do what we can to make things a little more difficult for folks that want to come here and do bad things. Briefly moving to the stats, it looks like we're trending in the right direction. If you look at year-to-date where we are, especially residential burglaries, assaults are down. Thefts are actually overall down, although the theft from autos are still starting to pick up a little bit. So we look like we're in good shape trucking for towards the end of the year. If we move to page 4, and again, I'm kind of going through this, but feel free to double back with your questions. You'll look at our criminal investigation section and some of the stats they've done. What I really liked, if you look on 5, 6, and 7, you'll see some summaries of some of the casework we've done that the detectives have done that have just really, really good detective work, following up, being tenacious, and you'll see, some arrests for attempt second-degree murder, first-degree murder, attempt first-degree murder, malicious destruction of property. Again, all these were great cases that they had to work and follow through, and they do a fantastic job. One of the things that we want to highlight is our crime scene supervisor. We just hired her in January. She's got the lab up and running, and some of the things that she's been able to do, 5 search warrants, 6 search warrants of vehicles, managing 7 crime scenes, and she's been a great asset, and it's very nice to finally get her in place and get that piece of the operation going. Another piece I'd like to highlight for the special assignment team on page 8, since April, they've recovered 14 handguns off the street. And this is, again, part of, in the same tenor of impact, it's taking information that the residents are sending us, looking at it, making it operational, and attacking and proactively getting those areas. And they've been able to get 14 guns off of the street just from that kind of process. Community services, page 9, 10, and 11, and you will see it takes 3 pages for all the amount of events they go to, all the HOA meetings, all the outreach. And again, outreach is where outside of just the boots on the street, outreach is where our bread and butter is, and that's where we make the connections. I will say we had coffee with a cop, I guess a week or so ago, and we had people, I talked to a young lady, she took the day off just to come to coffee with a cop and talk to us about a specific problem. And we were able to walk her through with the community services officer, look at the problem, look at what's been done, what hasn't been done, and start to put resources in place to address it, which is what these events are supposed to be all about. As we know, if we look on page 12, traffic is always a major concern for the residents. So these are some of the areas that we receive complaints on, and some of the enforcement action our Division of 1 has done. Corporal Saunders, he's a one-man army. He does a fantastic job, not only applying for safety grants, but also managing all this data and making sure that we're looking at trouble spots that we get complaints about. As I said before, training is a huge, huge way to reduce our liability. We've got some of the best trainers, I think, around. I may be biased, but it's really great to see them narrow and be specific to issues that we may be seeing within not just the department, but within squads and within certain officers. So that, okay, let's find a way to do this better. We can concentrate, always make ourselves better. At the same time, when we look at national incidents and things that blow up and go wrong, we train so we don't fall into those traps. And we train so it doesn't happen here, and that we can do everything we can to avoid having those kinds of incidents here. And a lot of that does fall back on training and building good tactical habits. I will finish up with just another example of what the officers are out there doing. And again, with 16 people down, our officers are still out there. They're still proactively patrolling. They're still proactively searching. On October 1st, officers were in the routine patrol area of Pillar Lane and Peach Walker, and Officer Tucker got a license plate hit on his LPR, his license plate reader, for a wanted car out of DC. They sat on the car, waited for the occupants to come back, had a brief foot chase, recovered 2 guns, a Glock 40 cal with an extended magazine and a Glock 9mm. So again, it's two guns off the street just from being proactively patrolling and utilizing the technology of the LPR. So again, it's everybody working together because they brought them back. Investigators interviewed them and were able to get some information out of at least one of them. And again, it's 2 guns that were on the streets of Bowie that aren't on the streets of Bowie anymore. So I can't say it enough. Our officers are dedicated. Our officers are committed to the city. Our officers are committed to the profession. And I would stand them up against any other department in the area. So thank you. I'll take any questions.
So very much, Chief. First and foremost, I think I speak on behalf of the citizens and the council in saying that we thank you so very much, you and all of the officers and your staff, for what they do for the city. We do appreciate that. We do understand and know that it's, at times it can be a thankless job, but know that we do thank you for what you do. And I think you're right. I believe the city of Bowie can stand our police department up against any in the country and look good. The one question I have for you, this is kind of going down in the weeds a little bit, was I want to tell you how happy I was when we got some complaints about the challenges with the school buses and the kids crossing, and how you immediately pulled all that together and trying to address that. Would you take a moment and just address where we are with that now?
Sure. And that was definitely a great example of teamwork. It's a great example of how many great connections Deputy Chief Preston has, especially from his time in the county, that we were able to pull everybody together very quickly. We received an email complaint about speeding in school zones and crossing guards, especially around Old Chapel and Whitehall. I would I responded, I think it might have been on the weekend or at least the evening, I responded back. Probably less than 24 hours later, we had a meeting scheduled, not just with us, but with the crossing guard, with the District 2 commander, and with the members, command staff, members of the county's SOD unit. And everybody was engaged. We all looked for solutions. Nobody tried to, say that, oh, that's not ours, that's not ours. Everybody took ownership of what was theirs and offered to help on some things that weren't. And it's a long-term problem that is not just in Bowie, but I'd like to think that we got the fastest response and battle plan from the certain other areas. And, we've seen some short-term improvement, which is probably all we're going to be able to hope for now, if I'm being realistic. But, hopefully in the long term, some other things will happen. Crossing guards will get more staff, and some other things will happen that will help improve. But it was definitely great to see so many people working together and so quickly.
Yeah. And I want to say again, on behalf of all the citizens, I'm very appreciative of how important and how that got way up on the list when it comes to taking care and the safety of our children. So again, thank you so very much for that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from any council members? Councilman before?
How'd you know that I was going to have a word to say? So funny how that works out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start off with a couple of things. The first is you made mention of our community outreach efforts. And I want to let you know, I think that's, the department does an outstanding job with that across the board, whether it's at the individual police officer level, whether it's the community outreach group, or whether it's just, Cup of Joe with the cops or whatever. It's tremendous. I think that's the way policing needs to be done. It's, builds trust within the community, and it separates our force from, the ordinary that don't have that same interest in reaching out to the community. So I think it's fantastic. Thank you very much. It speaks to the quality of the management of the organization. So kudos to you and your entire command team for making that happen. The next thing is I want to recount a story, and I think a bunch of people already know it. I saw on Nextdoor Bowie, there was a story about a lady who was behind one of our officers in the McDonald's parking lot. And she wanted to say thank you to the efforts for the office that the officer, just by virtue of his job, was undoubtedly engaged in, and she wanted to buy him his lunch. And he demurred, thanked her, and the usual sort of thing. It's just my job sort of thing. And so she went back to her car, and then she got up to make her purchase, and found that the officer had in fact in turn taken care of her meal for her. I don't know who the officer was, but if anybody does know, thank them and tell them they are very kind and an exceptional example of the type of officer that we have here on the force, and thank them for that and for being a good soul as well. And I'm sure that Officer Devon Brown will be doing the same thing as he's out there, having just joined the force. I am, of course, concerned about the staffing levels that we have, and the concerns about what we're going to continue to be able to do, given where we are. So I want to ask you a couple questions about that. The first is, given where we are with the staff, are there any capabilities that I know we're working to develop? You mentioned crime lab things and whatnot, that we perhaps ought to put on hold or have to put on hold given the shortage of people?
We're not at that point yet. We have started to roll from time to time community services into the patrol schedule, which means they're doing community services duties, but on the same hours as a patrol shift that may need help if, chasing calls for service or if they become short. The other thing we're doing is starting to assign an on-call person in case we need them, because oftentimes we're at minimum staff, so if somebody calls out, all of a sudden we're below minimum staffing. Mm-hmm. So we'll put somebody, okay, for Saturday, you're on call. So if there is a shortage or a call out, we don't have to go down the roster and beg people. We already have somebody we know that's going to be in our pocket. So we're trying to be as flexible and creative as we can. We're hoping to get, the one lateral that's in the process now. We're hoping that he works out, and we've got a couple possibilities maybe from some other places that will come ready to hit the streets and start working. But I will give it to especially to Lieutenant Rose. He's been very, very creative with patrol schedules and making sure that everything is covered and that we have some redundancies in case something goes sideways.
All right, thank you. Well, continue being creative. I know that as a council, we'll do whatever we can to help. It's a tough time finding employees these days across the board, and it's really tough when we have high quality standards, which we are unwilling to compromise. So
Absolutely correct.
Thank you.
We will work short before we work badly.
Thank you. Next item on here, crime map. Thanks for probably looked at me when like, I know what he's going to be barking about. I look forward to that. Thank you very much. That'll be most helpful. The other item I want to follow up on is our recent legislative authority providing for greater use of speed cameras in residential areas with low speed limits and that sort of thing. I know I had asked about some next steps on what we could do, what our options were. Can you speak to that, please?
Certainly. We are currently speaking to Conduit, and they provided some pricing on 2 additional cameras. Honestly, I can't say we are super excited about the pricing they gave us, so we are going to explore 1 or 2 other options and make sure that we make the best fiscal decision for the city.
All right, thank you. And then there is another one that just popped up over on Kendale Lane. If you would be so kind as to work with maybe the planning department and look at what they could do about some constituent concerns about cut-through traffic on that. Maybe people trying to avoid the speed humps on Bel Air. I'm not sure what the solution is.
On Kenhill?
Kendale.
Kendale, okay.
Yep. That would be good if you could take a look, see at that for me, please. Other than that, I want to thank you again and thank all of the command staff and all the officers that work here in the city. You do a tremendous job for us, and we are most grateful for your services and benefit tremendously. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Recognize Councilman Estelle.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Chief, Deputy Chief, I just want to say continued thank you for your leadership. I talk all the time with other council members, with mayors in other communities all over the region. There are a lot of local civil servants who stay up at night worrying a lot about what their community is going to be in the news for the next day, especially as it relates to public safety. And for many, many, many years now, I'm very, very, very grateful to be able to say that Bowie does not have that problem. Your leadership, your command staff's leadership has set a culture that is resident-serving, community-focused, incredibly positive, approachable, and it makes all the difference in the world. I know how hard you guys work to maintain and protect the reputation you have in the community, and in maintaining those ongoing conversations with our residents and how critical that is for you to be able to do your job and for our residents to stay safe. And I can't say thank you enough for that.
Thank you.
I'm very sad about the loss of Officer Sullivan. I had the opportunity to meet him on several occasions. I think you describe his personality very fully. And I'm very, very lucky to have met so many of your officers, especially Officer Redmond and Old Bowie, who I know that many of my constituents are on the phone with probably every minute of the day. But the availability of your officers to our residents and dealing with problems locally is really above and beyond. And it is just so consistent with so many of the people in your service. And I really appreciate that you continue to put quality over quantity in hiring. I recognize the challenges in that, in particular with staff shortages all over these days. But it makes a huge difference, and I think our residents feel that as well. As far as the, let's see. I know that we're seeing a little bit more illegal firearms, and I appreciate that you guys continue to deal with those in a manner that's both safe for the officers and the suspects and our broader community. I know that's not an easy one, and I appreciate you continue to work on that. Can you repeat for me, Chief Neske, what was said to you by the one particular suspect as it related to the theft from autos in Bowie?
I'm paraphrasing at this point, but it basically that they said Bowie was sweet because we have nice stuff and we don't lock our doors.
And this is not the first time you've gotten that kind of feedback from a suspect.
No, that's correct. About maybe a year ago, we heard the same thing when we caught somebody.
Yeah. So we have a reputation as being a community of very sweet summer children who are very trusting of the universe around us and don't feel the need to lock our car doors. And I just want to...
Your words, not mine, sir.
And I just want to emphasize that for the most part, we're not talking about crews that are going around smashing windows and taking stuff out of the car. For the most part, we're talking about crews who are literally just going car to car, pulling on door handles, waiting for one to open. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, the caveat to that is if your doors are locked and you leave a laptop in the back seat, your window's getting broken.
Yeah. So don't leave the MacBook.
It's a risk reward, right?
Yeah.
If I don't see anything, the doors are unlocked, I'm going in to see if I can find something. The doors are locked and you've got something that's really high value in that back seat, I'm going to take the risk of popping that, breaking that window. We had some, in fact, during the day about a month and a half ago that they went through Bowie Town Center and I think maybe Allen Pond and just saw stuff in the window. We're just doing smash and grabs and run. So, it's got to be the combination of both. Lock it and don't have anything visible that's worth taking.
I know we'd all very much rather live in a world where we didn't have crime and didn't have to practice, certain behaviors in order to maintain our own safety, but not leaving your MacBook Pro in the back seat visibly overnight with or without an unlocked car door seems like a fairly reasonable expectation, I think, for the typical person. And I know that you continue to repeat that, and we continue to repeat that to our constituents, and eventually maybe it will sink in, hopefully soon.
We can hope.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the camera rebate program?
Sure.
Just
It's
as a little
still going.
advertisement for
I've been signing check requests weekly. We did reduce the amount of money this year in the fiscal budget for it. We put $10,000 in, which should be more than enough. We are seeing a continued increase. I don't have the exact numbers, but we are still advertising it. When we go out and we talk about theft from auto, where we go through the neighborhood canvas, we tell residents about the program in hopes that they'll join. The more cameras and footage we have, the better off we'll be.
That's fantastic. And I know that, just speaking from my little neck of the woods, when I go door to door, I see more Ring doorbell cameras than I think I've ever have. So one way or another, folks are getting them, folks are implementing them, and we can hope that continues to deter crime as we go forward. My only other point, what are other things that residents can do to help make all of us a little bit safer? So I know, for instance, in Old Bowie, the three little letters that we all love to hear, ATVs.
Yes.
What is it that residents can be proactive about in alerting officers to these types of issues, whether they're nuisance issues or more serious, and then kind of be a part of the solution, especially as you guys work to get your staffing numbers back up, as are departments all over the country right now?
Right, and again, it's just the old, it's corny and it's cliche, but see something, say something. Report the activity, we'll come check it out. If it's ATVs, if it's things of that nature, oftentimes they're local. So if you happen to see one and you see it pull into a driveway, take note of where it is, and then just get us that information and we can go to the source versus, attempting a stop on the street where they may or may not stop, and you're creating a hazard both for the rider and for the rest of the residents. So again, it's just being vigilant, locking your doors, locking locking your house. We're getting into the weather where people like to leave windows open because it's cooler out. Again, just being smart and taking precautions.
I notice on nextdoor.com a lot, we often see people talking to one another about things that they've witnessed. And my heart always grows just a little bit when one person in the comment section inevitably says, has anyone actually called the police? And then oftentimes they will actually post the non-emergency number, and I just feel so happy on the inside when I see that. Because that seems like the step that often misses in that process.
It certainly is, and Impact is hopefully a way to help address that.
Right.
Because it gets us into some of the next door conversations.
Good.
And insert, go, hey, did anybody call? Here's, or even we had a conversation about response times. You know, I called, no one ever came. Well, did you stay on scene? Well, no. Well, okay, so how do you know if we came or not? So again, we don't mind, ask. I called, what happened to the call? When did you know, we got here 10 minutes later, we got there 5 minutes later. Maybe we were really busy and we got there 30 minutes later. But all we have to do is ask, because we'll tell you, you know, yeah, we were responding to an accident and some other things. We're not always going to have that quick response time statistically, because, you know, we're short and there's other things going on, but you don't know the answer unless you ask the question.
I really appreciate that, and it's just a reality we're all learning to live with, that increasingly business, government, and life all happen in the comment section somewhere, and we're going to continue to adapt to that. God help us all. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your service as always, and look forward to having more positive conversations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Let me just start by saying that, according to my colleague, I am a summer child. I am very guilty sometimes of leaving my. Actually, I'm not going to even say that out loud.
No.
Just lock it or lose it. How about that?
Someone's going to be waiting on you when you get home tonight.
Just residents remember, lock it or lose it. And I try to remind everybody in my neighborhood of that as well. So don't try anything. But Chief Nesky, Deputy Chief Preston, it's always good to see you guys. I feel like I haven't seen you guys in a while. This pandemic has changed the lives of so many. But over this last year, you guys have shown that the Bowie Police Department has such great leaders and exemplary talent between the pandemic and the unrest, and you guys have been with us every single step of the way. So on behalf of our community, I've got to say thank you, because you guys set the bar so high for folks in the state and in the county. And so I don't have any questions for you guys. Know that this council supports you guys. Know that you have my support, especially when it comes to budget matters as well. But more importantly, thank you for your leadership and setting a good example for the folks in this community. I know that especially in my district, there have been a lot of folks who have felt uneasy about police presence in general, right? And you guys have shown quite the opposite and make people feel really comfortable here in the city of Bowie. So I commend you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the support.
Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And definitely want to extend my thank you to you all, Chief Nesky, Deputy Chief Preston, and your entire department for your excellent service and tremendous commitment to the residents of Bowie. I also want to just say the Public Safety Committee is a great committee, and I thank Deputy Chief Preston for making sure the committee has all the information and for taking the time to listen to the committee members and providing the feedback necessary for us. And I'm very proud to support that committee, and I just thank you very much for your support. I do just have one question. Chief Nesky, you mentioned the informational loop. Could you just share with me how that works and what you, how the information goes out and where you get the information from when it comes to the residents?
Sure. We get it through a couple different sources. It can be next door. It could be a Facebook message. It could be an email to any of us. It could be a call into the call center. So again, we're trying to work the process out. The problem becomes, and the challenge becomes, there's so many different ways to communicate, right? There's so many different social media platforms. There's so many different ways. How do we tie those together? And sometimes it's just apple to apple. So we'll try to hop on next door and respond to something. I just did an impact report last week, I think. So that's online. So we'll have my chief chats and the impact report. The impact report talked about everything that we just did regarding the thefts from auto, how they came about, how the call unfolded, what happened afterwards. We went out in the community, we did X, Y, and Z, feedback that we got from there. So that two-way loop is the challenge. And it's hitting it on as many different frequencies as we can, because some people look at Facebook, some people don't, some people look at the website, some people just live on next door. So we need to, Bethany DeWright does an amazing job of monitoring all those frequencies and platforms, and we have to match our message to that platform. And I'm hoping that an impact report, weekly or bi-weekly, will be a way to tie all those things together. But we're never going to get away from having to post on the different mediums and sites to get that information. And when we do post, often that triggers another conversation that gets more information in, maybe about the same problem or a branch into another issue or something else we need to look at. So as we work this problem, as we work this process, we're going to try to hone and define that. But right now, it's still kind of a shotgun blast on each different area and how we communicate, because generationally they're different platforms, and so we're pretty much duplicating a lot of efforts, but we kind of have to do that to match to make sure that we're hitting all the different areas that we need to hit.
Great, thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Any of the council members want any comments?
Yes,
or questions?
Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Gardner, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to give definitely my thoughts of thanks and overall gratitude for the done job of the entire Bowie Police Department. I've always been a supporter of the police department and will continue to do so. Law enforcement is definitely a need in every community, and definitely here in the community that we all represent. I do have a question for Chief Nesky. Chief, you mentioned that you have a head count of officers at what again, Karen?
We're slotted for 67. We have 6 openings. That means we have 6 vacant openings. And then we have 10 people or 10 officers that are in something besides an on-duty availability. So they're on medical, they're on a suspension for a reason. So that puts us down to a total of 16 positions that are unavailable for full-duty assignments.
Okay, and question, Chief, are you running overtime currently? Are your department running overtime?
Yes, we are. And then we've been in contact with the city manager, talking about our numbers, looking at budgetary implications and where we can move things, and shifting to make sure that we'll be soluble and okay at the end of the budget year.
Okay, yeah, great, because that is one of my concerns. That, of course, we always want to look at the budget and the numbers, and the police department is one of, if not our biggest expense, and so we want to definitely curtail any overtime as possible. With that being said, I know that you are heavily recruiting other officers as well, new officers, to fulfill those vacancies. Are there any additional tools that you may need for recruitment of officers?
You can just keep pushing the recruiting bonus, which again is the $500 if you refer someone who gets hired and makes it through the academy. Not to mention the signing bonus of $3,000 to $9,000, depending on experience and education. So just keep driving them to the website, keep driving them to our Facebook page. All the information's on there. Again, it's a great way to spark the conversation. One of the things that we have a very large advantage on other departments is the amount of community support that we have and the relationship with the community that we have. So it's a great place to begin your law enforcement career, and it's also a great place to end your law enforcement career after a certain amount of time. So,
Okay.
we've got a lot of advantages, and just keep talking us up and talking the community up, and send them our way.
Okay, and Chief, question, because I know at one point the city did offer for officers or anyone in the police department, if they bought a home or purchased a home in the city of Bowie, there was down payment assistance available. I can't remember if it was ever implemented or if we did away with it, or what? Do you remember that program at all?
I remember the discussions a long time ago. I don't remember if they ever came to fruition. I'm pretty sure it's not in place now. So,
Okay, that would be something that I would talk with my colleagues about exploring, giving you another advantage to other departments when it comes to recruitment.
I will leave that in your capable hands, sir. We will take all the help that you can reasonably give.
Well, I'm open to doing it, and I'm sure my colleagues would be as well, looking at the advantages of tackling the overtime that could be that could become a potential problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing more to say.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. I can go.
Council member under Bermadue, please go right ahead.
Okay, I'll make this quick because you guys are chuckling. First off, Chief Nesky, thank you so much for presenting to us tonight. And I think I echo the same sentiments as all of my colleagues, so I won't repeat them so much. But I do have one question. Primarily in District 4, there's kind of been an uptick in theft and other crime-related acts, whether that's breaking into cars, whether that's, stepping on people's property, etc. And I think there's been this concern where residents in District 4 have become increasingly uncomfortable feeling like, they are kind of a target in terms of, people coming to whether that's steal or whatever it is that they're looking to engage in criminal acts. So I'm curious, I know that you have talked a lot about just the numbers and how many people we have on staff, but can you speak a little bit more to your recruitment efforts and what that's going to look like over the next couple of years? I understand the problem that we're facing is more of a national one, which completely makes sense and is understandable, but can you talk to some of the ways that you're uniquely positioned at the city of Bowie and how your team is thinking about kind of solving for that outside of the box and how we approach recruiting? Because one thing that I do want to make sure, specifically in the community that I represent, when you think about some of these younger families that are, quite successful in doing really well for themselves and them relocating to Bowie or coming to Bowie, that's a big step because, typically it's not a family that comes from a long standing of generational wealth or generational income. And so when you are reaching that success and you're providing for your family and you're moving to a nice area as Bowie, you want to come with a certain level of peace of mind that you're going to be safe. And we do have a relatively safe community, but as you know, in District 4, we're kind of seeing a lot going on here. So I just want to know if you could speak a little bit more to that, because I know that's a concern for my residents in particular.
Sure, and what I'll do is I'll redirect for half a second. And when you say District 4, that's a large area. So what I would ask is if you can send me some details as far as if you have specific areas that are expressing unease or have questions, we can definitely arrange either a Zoom or a get-together to address those directly. I'm a big fan of going to the source. So if you want to get that information to us, we'll be happy to do a direct conversation with some of those concerned residents to see if we can't ease their minds a little bit and share some information. As far as recruiting goes, right now one of the biggest things, I think one of the things we're doing that a lot of people aren't, we are making our recruit efforts community-centered. And what I mean by that is, when we put out that $500 recruiting bonus, it was meant to have community members looking and advocating for us. So the old model is we go and we pound the streets and hey, you want to be an officer? Hey, you want to be an officer? The community knows the best people or what kind of people they want to see policing them. And when you know those qualities, who better to find them than you? So one of the things that we're trying to do is get out in the community, have them become an ally, have them become advocates for us, and have them embrace the notion of we're going to contribute to the future of our community. And that means that, I know my cousin Ricky is an outstanding person. My my niece, Stephanie, she'd make a great cop. She's got all the qualities that I would want to see in an officer. So we get that information out. We try to at least start to have those conversations, put more eyes in the community looking for us. Additionally, the officers are incentivized by the same recruitment $500 to find people in their travels. Oftentimes, we talk to people at the Coffee with a Cop. I talked to a young gentleman who just got out of the Marines, looking for something else. He's interested. It's those conversations that we're having. We've tinkered with job fairs before, but they haven't always paid off as well as we'd like. So we're trying to find some different and creative ways, and again, part of that is being community-centered. We also want to try to get to the colleges, but if I'm going to be completely honest with you, a lot of the folks in college, if you look at the aggregate, are not that interested in law enforcement. And there's it's the narrative that has happened this year, the negative narrative. So it's the college campuses are not always the best places to be either. But the community-centered stuff was our first kind of phase in our recruiting strategy. Once we kind of see where that's taken us and what works and what doesn't work, we'll be looking at some strategies for phase 2. But pushing it out to the community and trying to widen the net, so to speak, of people who are looking for us was our first step. And we will be looking at a phase 2 here probably in the next couple months or so.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Certainly.
Thank you. I guess what I will take from that, Chief, is as far as the council goes, we are all recruiters for police officers.
Outstanding.
And we
Everybody,
need to take
everybody
that-
within the sound of my voice is a
Take that
recruiter.
to our communities and make sure that we share that.
That's right.
Having said that, any other questions? Anything from any of the council members? Hearing none, Chief, I would like to say thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All
I
you
also
do
finished,
again,
I'm sorry, the same thing, if anybody has any ideas that something we can do different, we definitely don't always have all the answers. So if you see something that you think may work recruitment strategy-wise, please pass it on to us.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Chief, could you please keep us posted on the arrangements for PFC?
Certainly will.
Thank you very much.
Certainly will.
All right, hearing no other questions, wait, Mayor Pro Tem, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to move to adjournment.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you to everyone for staff
Good night.
and everyone for being here tonight and taking the time. Thank you to all the citizens for their time as well. And again, staff, we always appreciate all you do. Have a good night, everyone.